The Consulting Success podcast is powered by the Clarity Coaching Program. If you'd like to work directly with the Consulting Success team and receive personal coaching and support to optimize and grow your consulting business, marketing, and revenue, visit consultingsuccess.com to find out more and apply.
Welcome to the Consulting Success Podcast. I'm your host, Michael Zapersky. In this podcast, we'll dive deep into the world of elite consultants, where you'll learn the strategies, tactics, and mindset to grow a highly profitable and successful consulting business.
Hey everyone, Michael Zapersky here. Hope you're having a wonderful day. And today I'm excited to have Jim Huffman joining us. Jim, welcome.
Hey, nice to be here. Thank you.
So Jim, you've grown 2 startups from an idea to over 10 million in sales. You spent millions of dollars on ads. You've worked with clients like FedEx and Oreo and Intuit and a whole bunch of others that people would likely know. And you're also a best-selling author who happened to actually push out Seth Godin from the #1 spot for a few days. Right? So you can claim that. And we'll get into kind of all that and break it down here for everyone to make this really valuable. But let's kind of start off your early years, because it appears that you pretty clearly have a session with marketing and growth. Where did that come from? Like, kind of take us back to your early years. What were the starting points of your, I guess, connection to marketing and interest in growing it?
Yeah, well, it's kind of interesting because I didn't start in marketing. I actually started in finance. I was a finance major. I worked at a small investment bank that did mergers and acquisitions. So all that means is small companies, it's a CEO that's about to sell his company from like 50 million to 500 million. And I was able to come in at that stage and help value the business. And what was interesting is if I'm lucky enough, I could be in that meeting, and I would never talk in the meeting. I was an analyst. I'd only talk if the numbers were wrong and they'd yell at me, but hopefully they weren't. But you'd be in these meetings, there'd be MBAs, there'd be lawyers, but the most impressive person in my mind was always the entrepreneur who took this idea and grew it and turned it into something. And I was like, I want to be on that side of the table. That's who I want to be working with or working for. And so I actually left investment banking, and this was like 2010. And that's when I kind of got into startups. I was like, I just want to be along for the ride. So I joined a startup. I was essentially an email marketer, copywriter. So I go from doing formulas in Excel to trying to come up with catchy subject lines. But what's nice, anyone who's kind of worked at a high growth company, I think I was employee 29 at this one. I was there until employee 150. Like, if you're able to survive it, you can get a lot of responsibility in a short amount of time. So I was able to do some stuff well on the email side, like, okay, let's figure out SEO. They launched an e-commerce division. Okay, Jim, that's you, go figure it out. And just by being somewhat okay with drinking from a fire hose, you get exposure to all these things. And if it's a company that's doing well, you get to see a lot of things. And then from there, I then went up to New York. I went to work for another startup, and I was kind of now this head of marketing, head of growth. And so I was figuring things out. I got connected with a few venture capital firms like, hey, you should talk to these other founders that need some help with growth. And that actually led to me like doing some consulting. I started teaching at this place called General Assembly, which is continued education for professionals. Just all kind of was a domino effect that led to this roundabout road of marketing and digital. So, but yeah, it was all from that interest of like being inspired by these entrepreneurs that were growing and selling businesses.
Let's talk about marketing from a mindset perspective for a moment, because your firm, Growth It, you put a large emphasis on ROI, right? Return on investment. But what I've observed and I find interesting is that many small business owners, many entrepreneurs, many consultants view marketing initially more as an expense than they do as an investment, right? With an expense, you look at it and go, okay, well, how much is it going to cost me? And essentially there's a reluctance to putting more money into marketing because a lot of people view it as, I don't know if it's going to grow and I don't know how much result I'm going to get from it. But when you look at those funded startups or just anyone that's really focused on growth, it seems that they're embracing this idea and this notion of investing more into their marketing, knowing that that's going to actually help them to grow. So can you just kind of talk about that for a minute in terms of your perspective around the mindset of marketing as an investment rather than an expense?
Yeah, absolutely. I think where you can get into trouble is where these departments or divisions are siloed and they're just thrown this budget and it's like, make it work, where I think it works extremely well when there's more intersection, there's more collaboration, there's shared information, because ideally it shouldn't be like, okay, you come up with your ad copy, run your ads, and here's your budget, go. But if growth and product and sales and operations, customer service are able to collaborate and have some sort of touch points, that's when the strategy becomes a little bit more unified. And also, it's not just about budget and allocation, but if growth is understanding the problems that's happening across the full funnel, if they're able to add value, run campaigns that know those objections at the bottom of the funnel, they know the issues customer service is having, they're speaking the language of the salespeople, that creates a much better cohesive strategy for going to market. But the other thing is, it's like, why are we limiting these budgets? Like, if you can understand your unit economics in a business, if you understand the customer acquisition cost, the lifetime value, the payback time, it should be more about, let's prove those unit economics and then scale it as much as we can until there's diminishing returns.
I think what you're talking about right now would be, it's very relevant for the company that has departments, a big team. But I want to bring this back to, let's say, the independent consultant or even a small consulting firm owner who, let's use the example, they're doing great work and, they have a client base, but now they want to grow further. If you were in that position where, let's say you've already established yourself, you have a nice little base of clients, but you haven't done much marketing, where would you start? I mean, you personally, what would you start doing from a marketing perspective to help you to grow your brand, to help you to really start, filling the pipeline and generating more leads? What would be kind of top of mind for you?
Yeah, well, first, I'd want to be very honest with, okay, what is my actual goal? Is that 10 more clients? Is that 50 more clients? Is that 2 more clients? Because I think those numbers absolutely can dictate the strategy of, can you do things that don't scale, things that do scale? What is the time horizon in which you want to close those? So if it's me starting out and I'm an agency, and let's say your monthly retainer is over 5 to 10K, your annual revenue from one client could be very strong. So I would want to do a bottoms up approach, almost like an ABM, account-based marketing strategy, where if I know, like, okay, I love SaaS companies that do over X amount in revenue or have X amount in funding, or their Alexa ranking is between, 6,000 and 700,000 or whatever. So they have enough traffic. If you can pinpoint your persona, I would want to try and get an exact customer list. Who are the heads of marketing, the CEOs? I would start doing pre-ads to them. I would then do a cold email outreach strategy. And because cold email is super annoying, I would make it very benefit focused. Like, hey, we'll do a free audit. Hey, we'll do a free teardown, like whatever that is. The other thing is, I would also be looking at what tools are they using? What newsletters do they subscribe to? Who are the thought leaders? How can I kind of attach myself to them so I can do a webinar or do some sort of content series with them? So that would be something I would be doing if I'm a consulting firm. And by the way, it's something we kind of did is we can get into this whenever we had a huge downturn during COVID and we lost a lot of our business because we were going through that exact same situation.
Yeah, we're going to get into that here just in a little bit because I think it's an important story for everyone to hear more about. You mentioned, though, when you were kind of breaking down what you did, or what you think people should do, you mentioned pre-ads. So for people that aren't familiar with what that is, can you talk a little bit more about what you mean there?
Yeah. So if you're doing this account-based marketing strategy where you've identified your customers, you're going to eventually do cold outreach to them. But whenever they see your name or brand come in the inbox, you don't want them to be like, who the heck is Growth Head? Ideally, if 2 weeks before you send that cold email, you can run an ad to them, but I would not make it an ad that's trying to sell at all. Just add value to them. If they're a SaaS business, it's like, hey, here are the SaaS trends to know for 2020, or 10 tips to reduce churn for SaaS, whatever that is. So that way, when they see your name in their inbox, like, oh, I got a download for them, or I see them posting really thoughtful content. So there's that positive connotation. So it hopefully increases your open rate and hopefully increases the engagement rate on it.
So take me back to, again, the mindset that you bring to this, because some people might listen to that and go, okay, so you're saying that I need to spend money on ads. I need to kind of really get in front of these people beforehand. Maybe I should just send them emails instead of spending the money on ads to begin with, because I'm not sure how much to spend, and so on and so on. When you look at this, I'm just kind of guessing here, but because it's probably the way that I look at it as well, it's, okay, you're going to have to spend, you're going to invest some money into this, but the value of one client. So if we take, let's say, the agency example of people paying you between $5,000 to $10,000 a month, right? I mean, you're talking about a $60,000 to $120,000 client. So it's okay to spend a few $1,000s, a couple $1,000s, whatever it might be, to get things moving if it's going to help you to increase your overall response rates and number of conversations and therefore number of deals and clients you pick up. Is that how you think about it? Or is there something else that you kind of tell yourself in terms of being prepared to invest money in marketing?
No, that's absolutely what I think about. It's like, okay, I'm going to spend this money, but if you close one deal, you're going to pay yourself back in 1 month. Because especially when you're very focused and you're targeting, your spend to get in front of those people is not going to be significant in terms of what that annual retainer looks like. The other thing is if you're a little apprehensive to spend your dollars on ads or on making content, you could, instead of investing money, you could invest your time, right? So that's one thing I did when I was starting out the agency was, okay, I have some connections with some interesting accelerators, interesting VC firms. What if I just told them, do any of your clients need free work? I'd love to help out. Because a lot of times it's about building your reputation. It's about building your case studies. And you might do such a good job. They'll be like, okay, we'll pay you just to keep doing it. And so that's another thing that you could do. But obviously, when you're doing free work, you want to be cautious with, is there a potential light at the end of this tunnel? Is there potential ROI in this, as opposed to being taken advantage of, I guess.
I think that's really important because I see this all the time where people are kind of thinking more short term, right? It's, well, I have to put this money out. And then they're not really seeing the long-term picture, which is this is an investment. Like where else, if you invest, say $2,000 or $5,000 into marketing that can help you to grow your brand and grow your business, and you pick up one client, and let's just say your average client is $50,000 over a 12-month period, right? Which is low for a lot of consultants. I mean, you're getting a 10 times return on investment if you've invested $5,000. Where else can you get like a 10 times return on investment in a few months? You can't get in the stock market. It doesn't happen, in real estate. And like, there's very few places where you can do that and where you can do it consistently like you can in your business if if you have the right foundations in place in terms of who your ideal client is, have the right messaging, have the right marketing, the right offers and all that. So that's kind of why I'm spending a bit of time here because I'm hoping that this can bring a little bit of light to those that are maybe a little bit apprehensive around marketing, that this is really the way to grow. And in fact, maybe you could just speak to this for a minute, Jim, but the companies that you've worked with where you've seen the greatest growth, what percentage of them are very focused on investing in their marketing?
Yeah. And I would even take it a step further, not just focused on investing in their marketing, but focused on adding value to their end customer or end user, whether that's being a thought leader, doing SEO driven content, or just like knowing where they live online and being able to participate in those conversations. But I kind of put it as like, investing in that distribution strategy, that acquisition strategy, paid, free, community-based. It has to be the core of what you do. And that's why it's some of these like companies we work with, the CEOs are the best CMOs because they're so focused on that and that's driving their overall strategy.
Yeah, got it. Let's now talk about this kind of experience that you had. And I know you're not alone because the last little while, right, since about March of 2020, with COVID and just everything happening in the world, it's been a very challenging time for many people. And we're not even talking about the health side of things and the impact and loss of life and so forth. But you shared publicly about your experience during that time where you lost a lot of business, but you did kind of take steps to bounce back. So just walk us through like what, first of all, happened in your business.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's early 2020, which feels like a decade ago. And things are going well. I, as a agency owner, I was actually finally able to fire myself from a lot of the work and have some amazing people that were doing the work I did significantly better. And we're on track to we're pacing out to hit 7 figures. And so we're actually about to make some very key hires. This is late February, COVID hits, and overnight, essentially in 48 hours, half of our business, almost like $500,000 just evaporated because we're not an employee, we're a consultancy. A lot of our clients just raise money. So they're already on a tight burn rate. And so the first thing to go is agencies and consultancies. So a few kind of emailed us like, hey, we need a pause. We're like, oh, that's not a big deal. That's fine. And then like 6 more. And I was like, oh my gosh, this has to stop. This is painful. And so that happened. And then actually I got COVID. I was traveling for work I gave it to my wife. And as you and I talked about, I have 2 daughters, one that's about to be 1 that's just over 3. And so we have no childcare. We have COVID, trying to take care of them, and my business is collapsing. So it was an interesting March for me, for sure. I mean, we're healthy. Luckily, we didn't have any respiratory issues, so I can't really complain. There's so many other people going through much worse stuff. But for me, relatively speaking, it was definitely a big kind of shift.
So without hitting too much on the health side, just kind of keeping us a little bit more focused to you first, from a business perspective and kind of a mindset and just a human perspective. As you're getting those emails, like what's going through your mind when one after another clients are saying, hey, let's pause, let's stop, let's whatever. Just walk us through, share with us like what you're actually feeling inside as you're getting those emails.
While we work with a lot of seasoned and experienced consultants here at Consulting Success, I'm often contacted by new early stage consultants. Invariably, the question I'm asked is, what are the steps I should take to become a successful consultant and grow my consulting business to my first 6 figures per year? Well, I'm excited to announce that we've opened the doors for our Momentum program. This is our most popular program for early stage consultants, and it has helped almost 1,000 consultants to start, run, and grow successful consulting businesses. It gives you the step-by-step plan to help you with your messaging, your fees, and pricing strategies, how to win more proposals, how to go to market more effectively, developing a marketing system to generate leads consistently, and so much more. And right now, until September the 19th, you can sign up for Momentum and get 50% off the regular price by going to consultingsuccess.com/audio. That's consultingsuccess.com/audio, AUDIO. Only 100 spots are available to join Momentum and get 50% off. This deal is only available until September the 19th or until all 100 spots are gone. We won't be opening up new spots in this program for several months, so don't wait. Go to consultingsuccess.com/audio. That's consultingsuccess.com/audio, AUDIO.
Oh, yeah. At first, it's denial. And then it's like, oh, that's only just a couple. And then you're just like helpless. It's like, oh, man, this is going to be everybody. And I was able to like kind of default to a game of math and numbers. I'm like, okay, we've lost half our business. How are we looking on burn rate? How are we looking on monthly revenue? Just trying to figure out the numbers of how are we from a sustainability standpoint with our business. And that's also when I was like kind of sick. So I couldn't even focus, because usually I think a lot of people, when your back's against the wall, you want to like act and do stuff. But luckily it happened on a Friday. I literally slept all weekend because I couldn't focus or stay awake for more than 2 to 3 hours. And then coming out of it, I think a lot of business owners, agency owners, you kind of put this pressure on yourself. You have to come up with the solution. You have to be the one that has the answers. I was like, what if I do the opposite of that? And I started setting up phone calls with who I thought were the smartest people I knew and my executive coach. And I'm just like, I was very transparent. Here's my numbers. Here's the situation. What should I do? I did that with my team as well. And from that, by getting everybody's thoughts and opinions, it helped me come up with my strategy. So kind of defaulting to being open rather than being closed, I think was something that worked out to be helpful.
I'm really glad that you're sharing that. So first, before you share with us what you actually did and the result of that, what was the advice that you got? What were you hearing from other people as you were talking to them?
Yeah, one was, and the thing is, I got so much advice, some that I didn't take, some that I did the opposite of from very smart people, but it helped me do that mental exercise of let's look at these extreme scenarios and what to do. One was, do I go super lean and fire everybody except for a few people and just ride this out? Another was, let's keep everybody, go on the offensive and know that this thing's going to turn. And the other thing is, do we change our offering? Do we make different services for people? Do we price down? Or industries that are doing well, do we price up? The other is change your go-to-market strategy. And so as I'm thinking through this, the thing that I couldn't let go of was we finally had this strong team. I knew that our clients were happy in good times because retention was good and they told us. So I'm like, if we can weather this out, I feel confident that we're going to come out of this even stronger. So I made the intentional decision to just like, let's hold on for 3 more months, keep everybody, and just see how things turn. But it was helpful to hear the other option of not doing that. That's kind of the solution I came to.
Hey, it's Michael here, and we'll be right back to the podcast. But first, are you ready to grow, scale, and take your consulting business and marketing to the next level? If so, our Clarity Coaching program may be a great fit for you. You'll work with our experienced team to set up a strategic plan for your business and coach you step by step in areas like how to consistently attract more leads, develop a magnetic message that resonates with your ideal clients, strategically package and position your services, earn higher fees, win more proposals, and scale your business. To find out more about Clarity Coaching and apply, go to consultingsuccess.com and click on coaching.
Before you share with us what you then kind of did in terms of going on the offensive, the thought of, oh man, this sucks, like I'm not meant to be doing this, or was there any like negativity that pulled you down, that entered your mind or your stomach during that time?
You know what? Like, there's definitely like negativity, and I like couldn't sleep, and I'm just like anxious, but never to the point where, oh, I'm done, I'm out of this, because I don't want to have to get a real job. You know what I mean? To me, that would be the worst. I was like, I don't want to have to go clean my resume. I don't even have a resume. Like, I don't even know what that thing would look like. Like, my wife also has a job. I'm like, worst case scenario, we're going to be fine. And I feel confident I could get one client to pay for me, one or two clients. So I think Tim, not to reference the 4-hour work week, but he has this like idea of fear setting. What is that worst case scenario? And when you think about it, it's actually not as bad as all this worrying you're doing can lead up to it. So I try and be somewhat looking at things from a 30,000 foot view, and that like these problems aren't end of the world and they aren't dire.
I think that's really important that you're mentioning, because it's true. I mean, most of the things that people spend time worrying about never actually end up happening, right? And so if you can just focus on all the potential and the good stuff, right, the chances of that then happening because you're focusing on it end up increasing. So it's the way to go in my mind. But okay, I think everyone's going, okay, Jim, let's hear what you did. Tell us, how did you get through this? So break down for us, what is the first thing that you did when you decided, okay, I can now operate, I can function on that stage of COVID. I need to start growing revenue and building things back up again. What was the first thing that you did?
Yeah, well, so what's nice about an agency or consultancy, like we're not selling t-shirts where we need to find 1,000, 1,000,000 people to buy something. We literally wanted 5, and 5 isn't a very obtainable number. So it's like, okay, we want 5 businesses to want to work with us. So one thought was, do we look at our existing industries that we're targeting, regardless of if they're going up or down, and give them a different offering? Or what industries are actually thriving right now that need our help more than ever? Because e-commerce went from like 11% of overall purchases to 30%. Online education is skyrocketing. This work from home environment is skyrocketing. So we started narrowing in on the industries where we could help. So like, okay, let's go after them. The other thing is we wanted to default to create more than we consume and meet people where they are, because right now, no one knows what's going on. So how can we help them by being thought leaders, putting out content to let them know that Growth Hit is around and Growth Hit exists? So what does that mean? We started increasing our frequency of publishing content. We did research on COVID. Hasn't really happened before, but there's been downturns, and there's been companies that have emerged out of downturns stronger than ever. So we started publishing content on them. We started publishing on mental models and frameworks that executives and CMOs should be thinking through to navigate this. We started increasing the webinars we were doing with partners and even hosting some on our own. So now that was another thing. We actually increased our ad spend on Google Ads and on LinkedIn. The thing that also worked really well was that ABM strategy. Once we outlined the industries that were doing well, we started building up our database of, okay, who are these companies? Who are the people of these companies? And how can we get in front of them with this content that we're doing? And then also just like us as like an executive team publishing more on LinkedIn. So all of those things combined helped us get, basically we were able to close the gap on what we lost in like 60 days, just by kind of doing a combination of those tactics.
Give us an example, Jim, of like, let's say one of the companies, you don't have to name names if you're not able to, but like, how did it break down in terms of, what actually worked? If you, okay, we landed this new client, where did it come from? What was the path for them? Was it a webinar? Was it emails? Kind of walk us through what that looked like.
Let's see. One of them, we kicked up our partnership with one of the tools that we use, and they were actually a referral source. So that one was actually kind of luck, not necessarily from what we did. So I'm literally going through the clients we closed in the past to get a good example for you. So the ABM strategy actually led to two of them, which was pretty significant for us. And those were both industries that were doing quite well. Third one actually came from our ad strategy. Let's see, the fourth one, that was actually a referral. And then the fifth one, that one was from a webinar from another partner. But I don't know if that's helpful to see the mix of it.
What I'm taking from that is, so, you mentioned this kind of account-based kind of campaign approach where essentially you're getting very clear on who the ideal client is, right? You're seeding with making sure that they're familiar or they at least know of your brand. And then you're getting in front of them with emails. And were there some phone calls in that mix as well? Or was it just some ads and emails? Or what did that look like?
Yeah, and I can kind of give loosely like our funnel for that. So it's running the pre-ads, it's doing the email outreach. The email outreach is essentially us doing a free audit. And so once they say yes, we'll book a time, we'll do the free audit. And when we do the free audit, we're doing two things. One, we're giving value, basically giving them, hey, if we are running your site from a growth marketing CRO perspective, here's exactly what we would do. The other thing we're doing is we're making an ROI model because we want to understand their traffic volume, their revenue per month, their existing conversion rate. Because if we can do what we say we're going to do and get like a 10 to 50% lift, we want to show that we more than pay for our retainer. And that is two things. It helps us qualify them as a potential great client for us. And two, it helps them see that, hey, this is a worthwhile investment for us. And then after we're able to do that, then it goes into the SOW and the contract phase.
Got it. I think the overall theme that I'm taking away, so regardless of whether it was a referral or it was a webinar or it was ads or it was account-based kind of a approach, what you didn't do was less, right? You increased your activity at a time when many people were decreasing their activity, right? You were spending more money on ads when a lot of people were cutting their ads. And I think that's really the lesson or the insight or observation for people to hear is you weren't just throwing a whole bunch of stuff at the wall and hoping that something, was going to stick. You actually had a plan. You worked it. Doesn't mean that every part of the plan necessarily worked as quickly as you'd like it to, but you didn't sit back, right? You took action. And the main thing is you were getting in front of your ideal clients consistently over and over until things started to connect for you.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And the other thing that I think I've been not so great at is sometimes being really decisive and moving quick. Because there's a thought, if you can make a decision and it's somewhat reversible and it's not going to kill your brand or hurt things, make that decision, yes or no, but very quickly. And so we defaulted because we had to making swift and quick actions. And that's what led to testing and doing all these things. And by the way, we're still testing and doing those things. And where we see return, we're investing more. And where we don't, we're pulling back. But it definitely forced us to be swift and decisive, which I wish I could say I was one of those CEOs that was like that all the time, but I'm not. I'll sit on ideas for weeks or months, and not act.
So that actually is like a perfect transition to my next question, which is, as you're talking here, I'm thinking, okay, what did you learn from this experience that you can now apply going forward, right? Because there's always that silver lining. And there's no such thing as, quote unquote, like a mistake or failure, as long as you're learning from it. It's just a learning experience. So here, one thing it sounds like you hit on is the importance of, making decisions maybe a little bit faster. What else? Now that you've passed through, you've gotten kind of back up to where you were before, close to it, or maybe even exceeding it. If you look at what happened in that situation, is there anything that you have put into practice and into place that would help you so that that same issue wouldn't happen? Is there anything that, you wish you would have done? What are the lessons learned that you think others could benefit from?
Yeah, 100%. This one is the biggest for me. And I think a lot of consultants or agency owners are in this boat where you don't necessarily have a repeatable and scalable way to get new business. Because I fell into that category. It's like, oh, we got a referral today. Cool. Or like, hey, look, a lead came in. We don't know how that came in, but let's get on the phone with them. And that was fine because times were good and we were at like full capacity. But the second we lost half our business and we're like, okay, we need to get more business. Like we are a growth marketing agency and we didn't have a repeatable, scalable way to do that. Like we are truly the cobbler with no shoes. And so it made us get very disciplined in what are our growth levers? What are the actual acquisition costs on those? and how do we pull those? So it's made me so much more focused on that. Also, I was doing a lot of offline workshops and teaching that led to some business. That went away. So we not only didn't have repeatable, scalable ways to grow, our main source of new business went away. So it made us get really focused on that. So now we actually have a model where we know our acquisition costs on each channel, and we're constantly testing that. And so that's been a big one. The second one is, this is a little on the operations side, but really having a healthy cash reserve. So when you're in a position like this, you have a war chest to be playing offense. We were lucky that we didn't make those 2 hires we were going to make. So we were already overextended. So when we lost half our business, we weren't completely killed because we already had healthy margins because we hadn't made those hires yet. Had we made those hires, the cash management game would have been a little bit tougher.
And so when you're looking at your cash right now, what is kind of the number that you have from a percentage perspective, or the amount of money that you are always looking to have in your reserves?
Yeah, we want to have over 6 months of cash reserves in the bank to operate. Problem is, as you hire, that bar goes up, but 6 months is kind of the goal. I'd love to be at 12 months as well, but with everything that's gone on, 6 months is kind of the goal.
Got you. Okay. So, and now when you look kind of going forward, if there is one area of your marketing that for your company, you're really focusing in, that you're seeing great results with, what is it?
Honestly, I think it's overall content and content distribution, because it was definitely, it was not a priority. It was secondary to doing client work and everything. And now we've kind of built this muscle of, we need to create content, put it out there, and we've been able to keep it up. We've launched a microsite called Funnel Teardowns. We're constantly doing teardowns of, high growth companies and what we think they're doing well on the marketing side. So I think that's been a good byproduct of this.
That's really cool. One other question on this is, a lot of people talk about creating content, but content is just one part, right? The next is how do you actually promote it, then get the distribution, get enough people to see and consume that content. What are the best practices that you're using there to ensure that people are actually seeing the content you create?
Yeah, I mean, it's also like with each piece of content, it's like, does this have the legs to be something that could really hit the mark? So not all content is meant to go viral or get a lot of engagement, but when it is something that does, I'm a big proponent of, obviously you want to stand it up on the various channels that you want, tag the right people, but we're also in a lot of different Slack communities that once we post something, we'll then Slack it through there and ask for likes, comments, for upvotes. And so it's just doing a lot of those little things to kind of help create conversations and get the content seen.
Awesome. All right. Well, before we hop off here, Jim, I want to just talk about your book for a minute, which is called The Growth Marketer's Playbook. And so we kind of alluded at the beginning that you beat out Seth Godin for a short period of time, but still it counts, right? In that top spot. Just kind of break down for us what you did in order to have a book that is in a top spot on Amazon and just getting a lot of that visibility.
Yeah, absolutely. Like whenever you're writing a book about growth marketing, it's like, oh, I should probably have a good strategy on marketing this book. If not, nobody's going to believe it. So it's like, crap, I got to figure that out. And so this was self-published. I didn't have like any PR or anything. My thought was to approach it actually like a direct-to-consumer brand launch. And so there's a book called Launch by Jeff Walker. So I took a lot of the strategies from that book with this launch, where it's a lot of pre-selling and pre-hype. So worked on building up my email list. I also did a launch on Product Hunt that same day, because taking a step back, if you want to be a bestseller or number one on Amazon, essentially for 72 hours, you need high volume of sales and reviews. So I focus all the energy to maximize sales and traffic on those 3 days on Amazon. So built up my email list, built up a Product Hunt launch, and then also I did a pretty massive giveaway, and I incorporated like 15 different partners. So I was able to channel all of those initiatives into the same 72-hour window. I actually had no idea Seth Godin was launching a book at that exact same time. I did not want to time it that way at all. Luckily, it was like his pre-launch, so he hadn't turned on his full marketing machine, because had he, I'm quite positive he would have blown me out of the water. We focused all of the energy and efforts around that. And then also, I did have within my email list a series that once you bought the book, requesting for reviews, which actually helped generate a lot of buzz. And so, yeah, that was kind of the combination of all those things rolled up to get us to a bestseller on Amazon and beat Seth Godin for 72 hours until he blew past me quite quickly.
Yeah. And I can kind of, just speak to a lot of the things you shared there, not on the product hunt side, but the promotion, just kind of getting that window. That's what we've also done with 3 of our books that were on Amazon and kind of reached that bestseller status. And
That's awesome.
I don't think it's the most difficult thing to do if you're doing the right things, right? It's true execution of that 80-20 principle, like getting the 20% of things that you just need to do that will give you 80% of the results. And we found that when it comes to launching books is really important. So for everyone listening, thinking about, publishing or in that process, definitely kind of re-listen to what Jim just shared there, because there's a lot of gold in it. All right, Jim. So where can people go to learn more about you and the work that you're doing?
So our website is just growthhit.com with 2 H's. It talks about us. I have a blog, jimwhuffman.com, where I talk about some stuff that I'm working on. And then I'm on Twitter at Jim W. Huffman. But my email is just jim@growthhit.com. But I'm always around and available and love bouncing off ideas off of people. So love to connect.
Fantastic. Jim, listen, thanks so much for coming on here, sharing your story, and glad that you and your wife and the whole family is healthy after that. I'm sure it must have been a really scary, kind of challenging time, and glad that you got through it and you bounced back both from the business side and health as well.
Well, cool. Thank you. Yeah, appreciate it. And same to you. Looks like you're doing pretty well yourself.
Thanks, Jim. All right. Take care.
You too.
Thank you for joining us on this episode of the Consulting Success Podcast. For more episodes and to subscribe, rate, and leave a review, head on over to iTunes. And if you'd like to develop consistent lead flow and a highly profitable consulting business, learn more about our coaching programs at consultingsuccess.com.